Hello everyone. Welcome to the next part of the social media clone project. What we are going to be doing now is after we have created the directories and files for groups and posts, we will actually build out the models.py files for both groups and post applications. So let's get started. The first model.py file I'm going to be working with is the groups models.py file. And then once this one is ready to go, we will move forward to the post models.py file. So right now under groups, open up models.py and then you can type along with me and then double check against the provided nodes. I'm going to say from Django.utils dot text import. So I'm going to import Slugify. Slugify just allows us to remove any characters that are alphanumeric or underscores or hyphens. And basically, the idea behind that is if you have a string that has spaces in it and you want to use that as part of the URL, it's going to be able to lowercase and add dashes instead of spaces. So that way it works if you browse. So we have Slugify, and then I'm also going to import something called uh, Mishaka, and that allows us to actually do a link embedding. If you have ever used something like a Reddit commenting system, you can actually put links or a little bit of markdown text. That's what Mishaka actually does. Now, in order to use this, we need to actually install it. So open up your terminal and then say pip install Mishaka, hit enter, and then my requirements are already satisfied because I already installed it earlier. But in your virtual environment, again, just type out pip install Mishaka, and that again is going to allow us to use markdown inside of this post. So I am going to minimize this once that we have done that, and then the next thing going to do is say from Django dot contrib dot auth import. So I'm going to import a function called get user model, and that returns the user model that's currently active in this project. So I'm going to be able to do that to create a user model. So get user model, user equal to get user model, and essentially that what that allows me to do is call things of the current user session. And what will make more sense once we actually call things of this user. So we'll save that for now, and then one last thing I'm going to do, which I am not going to be able to explain right now, but you will see it in the future when we actually deal with a template that uses it. I'm going to say from Django import template, and then say register is equal to template dot library, and we'll talk about that later. But basically, this is how we can use custom template tags in the future. So later on, I'm going to have an in-group member check template tag when we are actually dealing with the group HTML files, and that's going to come in handy here. Okay, so keep this in the back of your mind. You are not going to see it used until a future lecture, but we are going to go ahead and type it in now. Now it is time for our actual main model. It's group. So I'm going to say class group, and this is going to inherit from models dot model. And right now I will just say because I want to add in one more class here, which is the group member class. So I'm going to have groups and then group members. So we will say group members and then we will say models dot model, and then here I will also say pass and then save. So simpler one is actually the group member. So that's the one we will work on first and then we will have group itself. Let me collapse the directory tree and get a little more space under group, and then once we will fill this out, we will remove the pass. So in class group member, what I am going to do is create a group attribute, and that's going to be linked with a foreign key to the group class. So we will say group, and then we will give a related name, and related name I'm going to call it memberships. And essentially that means that the group member is related to the group class through this foreign key which we have called memberships, which makes sense. Uh, a group member can have a membership to a group, and then we will have a user also be an attribute, and that's going to be models foreign key, and that's going to be a link to user, and the related name is going to be user underscore groups. So essentially we'll have a user that we get from here, that current user that's logged in and playing around with the website, and they are going to have some groups that they belong to or that they are going to be a member of. So we want to link this group member class to both the user and the various groups that this user could belong to. So we have that, and then finally let's add in a def call for a string representation of this object passes in self, and then I'm just going to return self dot user dot username. So you remember when we were creating the accounts application, we had a user, and remember users can have users names, and that's we are going to be using for the string representation. So I will save that, and then we want to add in one more subclass here, the meta, and here I'm going to call unique together. So a unique underscore together and say equals to group. And user, we will explain later on what that actually means. But for right now, that's all we need in the actual group member class. We have the link to the group, to the user, the string method, and then this unique together for group and user. And then we will save that. And now it's time to deal with this larger group class or a group model. So uh, this group model or model class is going to have an attribute called name, which is going to be the actual name of the group, and that's going to just be models. It will be a character field, and we'll give it a max length. Let's say 255, does not really matter. Uh, and then I need unique to be equal to true, because I don't want groups to have overlapping uh, group names. So once we have that, the next thing I am going to do is say slug, and the group is going to have a slug, which is going to be models slug field, and I am going to allow underscore Unicode be equal to true. And then I am also going to require that this is unique. That way I don't get any mistakes calling a URL code, and I make sure that group slugs and group names don't accidentally overlap each other. Then we will have a description field as well, or attribute, and then we will say this is a text field, and it can be blank. We'll let it be blank, or actually let's not let it be blank. Someone should always have a description for the group. So we'll say it has to be true. We'll make the default value be blank. So a default value is just going to be a blank string. So I have two single quotes there, and that's going to be the description for the group. And then we are going to add another attribute called description. Description underscore HTML, which you may find useful in the future, but right now we'll just type uh, it in, whether or not we are going to use it. And it's just going to be the text field where we say editable, where whether or not you can edit it. Well, set it equals to false. Default value is going to be a blank string, and we are going to say that it can be blank in uh, case we want a kind of HTML version of our description. And then finally, the members of a group is going to be equal to models. and this is many to many field. So many to many field, and it's going to pass in a user object, and then the throw argument is going to be through a group member class. There we go. Okay. So now we have the basic attributes for our group, and we are going to add in a couple of methods. So the first method we are just going to say str, and this is just going to be the string representation of a group object where it's going to return self, that name, self dot name, this one. So the group string representation is just the name of the group. Next we are going to say save. So when you want to save a group, we are going to do the following. We'll take in args and keyword arguments, and then we'll set the slug of the group once you are saving it to Slugify. Self name, which means whatever the name is, you can go ahead and put spaces in it while you are filling out the group form. But when we actually save it, the slug will become the slug of call on self name, essentially just replacing and lower casing things. And then we will say self, the description, self dot description, uh, dot html. So that extra attribute that we created, that's going to be equal to Mishaka html, that allow us to put markdown in their self dot description. So there we go. And so in case we have markdown in the description, I can call it with my HTML, and then finally we'll say super. I'm going to save args and keyword arguments. So that's going to be our save method for the group. And then I'm going to get another method called get absolute underscore URL self. Then this is going to return a reverse call. Okay, reverse call of groups single. And right now we have not actually defined our urls.py file. So keep that in mind. Later on, we'll explain more about what groups and single is. But that's going to be reverse, and we are going to add in some keyword arguments, basically a dictionary where the slug is equal to self slug. Okay, and then finally we'll have a meta class call, and we will say ordering is equal to, and this has to be passed on as a list name. Save that, and let's kind of explain overall what we just did. So we set up our group class as well as our group member class. So group member just connects to a group that this group member belongs to, and a user that connects to the actual individual member. And a string representation is a username. Then we have our actual group class or group model, the name of the group, the select representation of that group, and the description of that group, and then a description that or description underscore uh, HTML that we are going to use with Misaka to actually get some markdown text. And then we will call members, which is just too many fields. So all the members that belong to this particular group, and that so far is all we have to do with the models.py file uh, under the groups application. Okay, now let's go to the models.py file in the post application. So I will save this model to .py, come over to post models.py and then collapse this. So right now this is the post models.py file uh, that we are going to be editing. All right. So the first thing I want to do here is a group of members. So for the post, I'm going to say from Django URL resolvers import reverse. That way, when someone does a post, you are going to kind of send them back to. And then the other thing I'm going to say is from Django .conf import settings. Then they are going to import Misaka again. That way people can write markdown inside of their actual post. And then we will save from groups dot models import group so we can connect the post to an actual group. And then finally we can do this below this comment kind of whatever you want to put them. We'll say from Django dot contrib dot auth for authorization import get user model, and I will create a user object saying get user model, and that's just going to connect the current post to whoever is logged in as a user. That way you can actually get the current user logged into the session. Now I'm going to say class post models dot models, and I will just put in pass right there for now. And what we are going to do is a couple of things. We set up the attributes for post, set up the string representation method, the same method, and then get absolute URL method, which means once someone has posted something where we are going to send them, and then we'll have a meta class for other information. So I am going to now get rid of that pass and start typing that out. Okay, so we have user, and that's going to be models, and they will be a foreign key to a user, basically this current user. And I will say related name is equal to post. So I will create a field called created at, and that's going to be equal to models, and that will be a date time field. And I'm going to have it be auto now is equal to be true. That way, once someone posts the actual date, time that they posted, is just automatically connected. So you don't actually fill in the time you posted it. Uh, it just auto generated for you, and you can display that or not display. It's kind of up to you, but we'll have that information inside our admin panels, admin models. So then I'm going to say message. So what's actually the message in that post? That's going to be equal to models text field, and I will just use all the defaults there. I don't want to really put a max length on that right now, and then the HTML markdown version of this. So we'll say message underscore HTML. That's going to be going to be equal to model stocks text field, but I don't want people to be able to edit that. So we'll say editable is equal to false, because we are going to basically grab that directly from message, and you will see that in a second. And then one last attribute here, I will say group. That's going to be models foreign key. And that's going to connect to group, which we remember imported from our group models. So this post is connected with a foreign key to a group, and it has a related name of post, and then we'll say no is equal to null is equal to true, and then we'll say blank is equal to true. So our foreign key, it can be null, it can be blank, true, blank, true. But we'll take care of that in further detail of the template themselves. But let's go through those methods that were going to do. Okay, so first one is the string representation of this, and that is just going to be the actual message, the post. So we'll say return self message. So the next one I want to do is the same method, and that's going to look similar to what we have done in the past, where we have arguments, our keyword arguments, colleagues, or keyword arguments, and then that will be self. So that message underscore HTML is equal to Mishaka. Mishaka.html of self dot message. That way, if someone writes in a markdown, so they put a link in their post, it doesn't look with like strange notation of brackets or stuff. It could be supported with the HTML from Misaka, and then we are just going to say super save. Then again the args and the keyword arguments. All right. So that's the same method. And then finally we are going to do the last method, get absolute URL, and for that we'll do class meta or a subclass. So the get absolute URL is going to say self, and this is going to return the following. Let me put some more lines in here. So this is going to return the reverse function call, and we'll pass in post single. So again, we have not set up the actual URLs, but that will be set up eventually. And then it's also going to take in some argument, which is going to be dictionary of the username, that will be self username. Guys, wait for sometimes. I will come back. So here self.user.username. Then the other thing that's going to go in here is the primary key. So we are going to be kind of using uh, primary keys as a way to relate to post back to the URL. So that's going to be equal to self dot primary key, and that should be it for the actual get you absolutely all call. Then we are going to say class meta. So we will say ordering is equal to which they created at, but notice I put a minus sign here. So that way we see them in descending order. So the most recent posts are at the top, and then we'll say unique underscore together is equal to what's going to be a list. So it can also be a tuple. You will say user message, mm, that way. Every message is uniquely linked to a user. All right. So those are the models.py for the files for post and groups. Now we definitely did a lot of typing here. So double check that you match up to the supplied notes or whatever the thing course content folder. You can find this same text. In case and you were not able to follow along or we are looking down and typing etc. So always check against the actual provided .py files. And coming up next, we are going to expand of these models .py files and begin to work with them using our views.py. All right, let's see in the next lecture.